like we're going
Sounds like
live
cool.
now.
Okay. All right. Well, I got 9 o'clock. Do you want to go ahead and get started?
Sure, I'm
Good.
good.
We'll have some more people come in here this morning. Excellent. Cool. So, Lesley, first off, thank you.
Thank
Um,
you.
this whole thing kind of started because like I have a weekly call with Andy on Mondays, and it was International Women's Day, and I said, hey, who can we interview to kind of celebrate? And Andy is a very intelligent husband. He said Lesley because he knows that you're the best. And then he's incredibly even more smarter as an OP because he said immediately, I'm not going to interview her because that would be weird. So Sam, that's on you, your idea. So yeah, thank you for being here.
I love it. I'm
Yeah.
so excited to be here. It's fun being on the other side of this, right? Because I got to take part in February with all the couples, which was really fun. And I'm with you. I think interviewing is awesome. I like that part.
It's like a muscle you don't get to exercise too often, but when you do, it's really, really enjoyable experience. Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Cool. So in the theme of International Women's Day on Monday, I want to ask you a few questions about, what does it mean to be a female leader in this industry? So any thoughts on that?
Yeah. A lot of thoughts actually. Um, with the female leaders in Gary Keller's group, mastermind group that we became a part of in 2015 truly changed my leadership lit in my life
Hmm.
because I really felt kind of stuck for so long with two small children. And how do I run a big real estate team? And how do I do this? And I think we all need to lean into other females, right, that are doing this at such a high level. And there are two that just poured into me so much. And one of them is Laurie Reeder. She's down in Fort Lauderdale, no longer with Keller Williams, unfortunately, but she and I still keep in touch. And they just had a tremendous impact on Laurie, Marie Hoffman, Ashley Wilson, Wendy Papazan. I mean, the list goes on and on of these females that just really not only talked about how you lead your family, but how you lead a big team and how those kind of merge together. So, I mean, my passion, Sam, has always been women and especially moms in real estate with small kids building a business because that was so challenging for me early on and really figuring out like the counterbalance piece because everybody talks about balance. There is no balance. Are you kidding me? Like that is the biggest joke. And so I think though that's what we're just taught as humans, right? I mean, we want to balance life. We want to balance life. Well, I mean, the magic always happens in the extremes. And learning that, I think 2015 was really a good a good year for me because that's really when I learned that counterbalance strategy.
So what stands out in 2015? What happened that year?
That year we got into Gary's group and
Okay.
we started teaching and training a lot. And so we started traveling and we would be asked to speak at, in South Florida, or we would be asked to speak in Houston, Texas, or wherever we would go. We were on the road a lot. And my family was kind of telling me, and thankfully they're not on this call this morning, but my family was actually telling me, I mean, is this the best thing for you to be on the road with your young kids? And they were having to come in and keep them, right? And I cannot tell you how many life lessons I learned on the road that year by surrounding myself with people that are like us, right? That are running big teams. And it raised my leadership lid in a way that I never dreamed. And I remember journaling one day on the plane and feeling kind of guilty because we were flying from Fort Lauderdale straight to Austin to Gary's mastermind. And I think we were going to be away for like 5 days, and I had missed a soccer game or something that I felt like I shouldn't miss. And it was in that moment, it was like, you know what? I've got to give myself grace. I don't need to be there all the time. Yet when I am there, I need to lean into quality time, right? And so many moms are focused on this quantity and they think they need to be with their kids all the time. And that's just not it. It's quality. And so I think that was my huge lesson that year. It's like the magic happens in the extremes. And I became such a better leader that year. I mean, so many wonderful things happened.
Yeah, and I love that too because I just started reading again the one thing, and that's one of the biggest lies is that there is no such thing as a balanced life. That you ultimately we do have this counterbalance, but it's not like the justice scales that we think about when we think balance. Like we do have extremes, but ultimately we've got to bring it back to the center. And I love hearing that. How does that show up now? Is we see that on the personal side of how that impacted your kids and your family. What does that mean now to be a female leader among other like leaders on the team, female who women who are coming, up through the ranks underneath your arms? How does that show up?
I think I have a ton of empathy. And
Mm.
I think my operations staff would especially tell you this, that as a mom, I have empathy for parents, right? Even the dads on the team. Like when something happens with their kids' lives, I don't want them to miss that, right? And I want to model great behavior because the purpose of business is to fund the perfect life. And we can't have a perfect life if we miss important things in our children's lives or important things in our families' lives. Heck, yesterday, I felt like it was a blessing that I did not have anything in my schedule except lead generation, and we're building out a new agent training manual. And my grandmother, 2.5 weeks ago, had a massive stroke, and she's in the hospital. And yesterday they opened it up for 2 people to come in at a time, and my son's on spring break, and I literally was able to leave and go see her just for a day for 2 hours. And that's the behavior that I think we so need to model instead of just pumping out work all the time, right? I mean, when we're focused at work, we need to be focused at work. And yet when we need to be somewhere else, that's okay, because the purpose of business is to find that perfect life. And, Gary talks about you have these 4 balls, and it's, work is a rubber ball. And if you drop the ball at work, right, that ball is actually going to bounce back. But these other balls, which are family, health, your integrity, they're glass balls. And if you drop those balls, they will shatter and you may not get them back. So for me, that was a really tough lesson early on in my career because I let the family ball drop and shatter a lot. And then having to turn around and heal that or mend that, right? And so now it's like, you know what? If my grandmother's sick in the hospital and I can go see her, like I need to be there because that's the glass ball. I can't get those hours back, but I can get the work hours back because I can make it up on nights and weekends or wherever, right?
Right. Yeah, very, very inspiring. And thank you for being a leader and example. I think that's the key thing is that when you have those core values of God, family, then business, then like we all know that there's going to be a season where things need to definitely go in one direction. We have to focus on what's the most important thing. We'll be back to, work or whatever the other case may be.
So true.
Um, so help educate me and maybe the rest of the boys here on the call. What challenges do we not even see that y'all ladies face on a regular basis inside this industry?
Um, there are a few. I think holding your household together. I mean, that to me is the biggest challenge because in the middle of a work day, there are so many times that I'm getting a text where soccer practice canceled or I've got to be somewhere else and I can't be in 2 places at once or the kid's sick or whatever. And I feel like that still, for the most part, falls on moms. And you know why it falls on moms, Sam? Because we want it to.
I was gonna say because y'all have superpowers. That's that my
No, because I think sometimes we truly want it to, because
yeah.
I think of like, if my kid calls and they're sick, I am not going to really say, hey, Andy, will you take them? Like, I want to take them, right? So I
Yeah.
think we do that to ourselves. So in some ways, I think keeping it all together at home is the biggest challenge in this business, and keeping it all together at work. And then two, I mean, this industry is filled with male leaders. And I mean, if you just look at even Keller Williams, right? There's so many males in leadership positions, and I admire all of them, and I would love to see more women. So for me, it's looking up to people like Kimber Mankiti, who's the regional director for the DC region. She's amazing, right?
Yeah.
So I want to cheer these women on and for them to get amazing opportunities in leadership. But it all starts with us working hard, right?
Yeah.
We have to prove ourselves too.
Well, and I remember the conversation too, whenever, we had the change of leadership and Laura Donna being promoted to team leader at North Atlanta. I remember that conversation with Andy and you calling him out on it being an old men's club on the leadership team. And I really appreciated that moment. I was like, yeah, this is fantastic. Yeah.
I did. I was
Yeah.
like, you need a female.
Yeah.
Like it can't be all males, right? And I love seeing women in leadership positions. I was about to say something that I was thinking, oh, I know this is a really great conversation. So we're really good friends with Brett Codwell. He was actually a client of ours. You guys may remember Brett. He was executive leadership director for the Southeast region.
Yeah.
And he'll come over to our house and we'll have drinks occasionally. And Brett was over one night. And we were talking about, I said, so many men get these OP positions. Like, there are so many men are operating partners. And Andy laughed and he said, Lesley would be just as qualified to be the OP as me, right? He said, and Brett looked at me and he said, Lesley, what do you think about that? And I said, I love my team. And he said, tell me more. And I said, well, the team is my baby. Like, I founded that. I started in real estate. And I said, I have a really hard time leaving that team. And he said, okay, I want you to think of all your friends that lead big real estate teams. Have any of them become OPs? And I start thinking, I'm like, Sarah Reynolds, OG, Tiffany Fikes, Wendy Papazan, Vio Williams. Like, I just started naming all these women. And I looked at Brett and I said, not one.
Mm.
And he said, why do you think that is? And I said, honestly, they may be like me. Like, they can't leave their team because they're so proud of what they've grown and they see such opportunity for that team that is the leadership. Like, that's what they're fully focused on. And maybe they don't want to diversify and be a leader in other places. And so that conversation was just, I think as women, we are like, it's like we're mama bear, And to think of leaving that and going to do something else, we almost feel like we would be cheating it.
It's the same feelings you had whenever you started going all in on real estate. And now you're having the same feeling with the family you created with your team. Is that more or less what I'm hearing?
Yeah. And, I don't know that many of you know this, but we just had a major change of events on our team. And Jenny Mosier actually is now working in the Southeast region, and she was our director of sales. Mm-hmm. And Andy and I both jumped completely back in. So I'm director of operations right now, and I lead half of the sales team, and Andy leads half the sales team. And we have been kind of more out of the Peters company for the past several years. And now we're fully back in. And Sam, I cannot tell you how happy I am. It was like God's blessing, because being back on this team has given me like so much joy. I go home now and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And so sometimes I think we're always looking for like the next thing or what's greater or what can I do better, right?
Right.
And sometimes it's right in front of us and we just don't see it. And so I've come into the team in the past like 60 days and we're creating agent training manuals. I've hired an attorney to do all new agent agreements, an attorney to do a new policy manual. We just hired a new ISA. We're about to hire an ISA company to run weekends and nights. So we're doing all these things. And before, I didn't even see the vision for that. And it's like we can't see the forest for the trees sometimes because we're always looking for what's next.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair too, like even pre-COVID, y'all were traveling how many times a week? Time away from the family is just, or time away from the team is just like time away from the family.
Yeah. Great story on that. And that was kind of one of those what's next moments. And I still think Andy and we desire to be master faculty with Keller Williams, and we want to teach and train once our kids are graduated from high school. But right now we were on the road 2019, 71 days, 36 cities outside of the metro Atlanta area. And my parents were keeping our kids all the time. And it was the most exhausting year. And not only was it exhausting personally, it was also exhausting from a team perspective because we went backwards, because we took our eyes off the business, and we can't take our eyes off the business. We can't. Like, that's our main bread and butter, right?
Yeah, empty the tank. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was a huge learning lesson. In fact, Gary had us on stage at Mega Camp and we were having that conversation. Huge learning moment. We wanted to be on the road teaching because we were being asked and we didn't say no. And yet sometimes we've got to say no because, when you say yes to everything, know what you're saying no to.
Right. Well, in that case, it's what? It's family, it's the team, it's the most important things. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So back to the theme of International Women's Day being on Monday, I wanted to ask the question too of, there's obviously your lid's been raised with a group inside of Gary Keller's mastermind. What other women have inspired you? Like whether it was leading up to your career in real estate or even like today?
Yeah. Oh, such a great question, Sam. Oh my gosh, I could name tons.
Yeah.
One of them, and I'm going to say this, and I want you guys to really think about this, because sometimes I think we can be offended in the moment when someone's leading us because they're holding us accountable. And later we realize that it was one of the best things that they ever did for us. And so 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have put this woman on my list. And now she's like one of the people that's inspired me the most. And it's Robin Matthews. She was actually our team leader at Keller Williams Peachtree Road before Andy became operating partner for GLG. And Robin truly changed our life. And she did it because she would call us out. And we always say that coaching is stabbing you in the front, right? We need people in our life that'll just be like, don't do that. Like, that's stupid. Why would you do that, right? She didn't say it in that way, but she would call us out a lot on things that we were doing that she felt like we needed to do a different way. And so I think sometimes as leadership in Keller Williams, we really tiptoe around being so nice and loving on the agent.
In culture, yeah.
Offend them, right? And Robin wasn't worried about offending us in the moment. She was more concerned about our future. And that has just, she changed her whole life. She taught us how to build a big real estate team. And she looked at us and said, you guys are exhausted, you're run ragged, and it's because you are trying to be all things to all people, and that's not possible. So read MREA, and let's start building this thing. And she was the first one that just, really pushed us.
Is that the one piece of advice that sticks out from Robin?
Yeah. A funny thing that sticks out from Robin, and I tell this story a lot, so many of you may have heard this, but we were coaching with Robin one day, and we had Heather Thomas as our assistant, and it was just Andy and me. And we were in her office, and she looked at me and she said, Lesley, what do you guys do when a sign call comes in? And I looked at her and I laughed. And I said, we pray they have an agent. And she said, what? And I said, yeah, Robin, like, we pray they have an agent. And she said, you are kidding. And I said, no, seriously. I said, we have no more bandwidth. We don't have any time to show anyone. And she said, all those leads that you are dropping on the ground and praying they have an agent would be an incredible life for someone else. And she completely changed our thinking in that. We weren't thinking of how we can impact someone else's life. We were just like survival mode. And so often in this business, it's like this hamster wheel, right? It's like next transaction, lead gen, next transaction. And we so focus on service that we so forget that, it's more than just servicing our clients. It's working on the business to take it to the next level. And I think that's where she really taught us that success is through others, because no one succeeds alone.
And how interesting that whole conversation started with the simple question of what happens when somebody calls a sales sign.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's incredible leadership.
Questions. Yeah. Incredible leader. The other leader that comes to mind, and this is why I feel so passionate about teaching the systems of MREA. Our assistant team leader at Peachtree Road, when I first got into the business, her name was Barbara Kyle. And we actually give a Barbara Kyle Rookie of the Year award at TPC, awesome, at the Peters Company every year to honor her. And then we give a Robin Matthews Growth Award to honor a leader on the
Very
team.
cool.
A lot of growth. So cool. We are constantly honoring those ladies. But Barbara Kyle, funny story, is Andy had just joined me in the business, and we were doing about 34 units in the midst of the downturn. It was 2010, and Barbara wanted to business plan with us, and she wanted to block. She loved MREA business planning. We blocked 3 hours with her and did our whole tracker. And she said, guys, your next step is to hire an assistant. And it's 2010, guys. The pit of the market. People are jumping out of real estate left and right. And this crazy lady is telling us to go hire
someone.
Really? And Andy's salary, he had a great 6-figure income. He had given that up. We're in the midst of the downturn. We have 2 small kids, and she's telling us to hire an assistant. And you guys, her gray hair and her knowledge of MREA talked us into it. And we hired that assistant and doubled our business in 1 year. We went from 33 to 65 units in a year.
And how often do we hear that? Yeah.
I mean, one hire. And so when I look at the people, honestly, Sam, that have just, I mean, there's a ton of women that have inspired me in the beginning and continue to inspire me today.
Yeah. Who, if there was one person that you would say inspires you the most right now that we should all go follow on social media or KDB Connect everywhere in our world, who would that be?
I think it's Kimber Mankiti.
Yeah.
I really do. I don't know how much you guys know about Kimber, but she is just the most incredible person. She has 4 boys. I mean, she and her husband, Bo, and that's probably why I'm choosing her too, is because she's a couple in real estate, right? I love Bo too. But I mean, Kimber has not only, grown their team, they have a mortgage company. She's gone on to become regional director. I mean, and if you guys have ever seen her present, she is one of the most amazing presenters and teachers. She just has this calm, wonderful way about her. And I admire her so much. So definitely Kimber.
Yeah, I was always very fortunate when I was in the Pennsylvania region. Kimber and Bo would come up from Washington to speak for us in Philadelphia. And I remember hearing their story too about how they got started very similar, a very small team, and like they were above like a Korean restaurant and like this small little one space, just like it's, they have a great story. Yeah,
they do. In fact, Sam, I think if you guys didn't see the interview that I did with Kimber when we did the Mom Month. Yeah. I think you can probably search Facebook and find that interview with her. She's awesome. But if you want to look her up, it's Kimber Mankiti, but it's with a Y. Kimber with a Y.
Yeah. So tell me about, because I think this is really, really interesting to me, because I've tried to get my wife into real estate about 1 million times, especially into Keller Williams, because I love the culture here. You got into real estate first, coming from being in education. How did that conversation go to pull Andy into it? It may not have been pulling, but what were the fear? What was the conversation? Yeah, like, and again, 2010, scary time. Like, what was that all like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got in 06 and I got this really fast start, but I was part-time. I was teaching. I had our first baby, my first year in real estate. And honestly, I did 12 deals part-time and had a baby in October and came back the next year. And Andy may not like that I say this, but Andy kind of thought of real estate as a side hustle or a part-time job. So you don't need full-time childcare because it's so much nights and weekends. Like, why would you have full-time childcare? So I had a 2-day-a-week nanny, and we didn't have any family in town. And he was traveling from Tuesday to Friday every single week with his job. And I was just really dying. A newborn, I did 24 transactions that year by myself. What you guys may not know about me is I am a complete perfectionist. So when I tell you I'm doing 24 transactions a year, I'm also trying to follow MREA and do everything that everybody tells me to do. And I literally was kind of losing my mind a little bit, and I needed leverage. And I remember he would leave on Tuesdays, and I'm high D. I can't even remember the last time I cried, but he would leave on Tuesdays, and I would just be so sad. I'm like, don't leave me. Like, how am I going to do this? I would carry my little one to inspections. Like, it was awful. And then by the 3rd year, I was on track to pace the same number of units. And I was like, I just can't continue to do this with 2 days a week childcare. Like, something's got to give, right? And I don't know how I'm going to have another baby, which we wanted 2 children, if I'm going to do this. So I just started begging Andy. I'm like, please join me in real estate. And if you won't join me, I need to hire an assistant or at least a nanny. Like, something's got to give. And I think he got tired of me crying on Tuesday nights when he would leave town every single week for 6 months. And he was finally like, okay, I'll give it up. I also think that he saw the opportunity in real estate. I think he saw how much success I had just as an individual agent. And I was making the same money he was making, managing 30 people and being on the road 3 days a week. And he was like, this is no life to live. Like, I'm out. But it took probably 6 months of me trying to convince him to do it.
How often now do you remind him of how great that decision was? Like, I feel like you can hold that against them for a while.
Yeah. I was like, you are my best first hire, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny because we look back on that, and he got into the business and he was Lesley's husband. And I mean, I was rookie of the year for my office. Like, I was one of the top agents, even in my second full year in the business. And it really bugged him. Like, he was the new guy, he was Lesley's husband. And it did not take long for him to prove himself. And I laugh and tell him now, I'm like, I'm Andy's wife, right? I mean, clearly nobody thinks I got into the business first. I'm Andy's wife.
To be fair, Andy did prep me that you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, how times have changed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He says that you love to say that. He says it's absolutely not true, but he knows that you love to say that. So looking back on maybe not just even real estate, but just looking back on life as it is today, what advice would you give your younger self? Like, if you get a time machine and you'd be able to just like bop yourself on the head.
It's easy.
Do this, don't do this.
Two things. And I'm on the phone constantly with agents. And yesterday I was driving to Alabama to see my grandmother and took a call from an agent that needed help. And her first question was, what were your biggest failures? Like, tell me, I need to know. And there are two, and it's super easy. The first one was leverage. Guys, I was so burned out by my third year because I did not hire leverage. And it was me being young and not pushing for, not fighting for myself. Like, and if you're in a relationship and your partner is not in real estate, they don't understand because they see the flexibility and schedule. And a lot of times they don't understand how hard this industry is. And so I think just fight for yourself to get leverage at home. For me, a nanny would have changed my life. Any piece of leverage, an executive assistant, heck, just a housekeeper once a week, like any of those things. So the first thing is I would have hired leverage sooner. Hands down.
Whether it's in your business or in your personal life, get leverage one way or another.
Absolutely. And it depends probably where most of you guys are right now within your business, but hire leverage, hire it sooner. Put away money, save for that leverage piece. We actually did do that, which we've always reinvested in the business. And I'm the daughter of a banker and the granddaughter of two bankers. So I come from a long line of people that are like, save, don't spend. Still drive a Ford that has almost 100,000 miles on it. I'm that person. But so we did do that, but we just wouldn't come off the money to hire those leverage pieces early on. And that could have changed our life. Like, I look back and I wouldn't have been so burned out. I wouldn't have missed moments with my kids if I'd have done that. The second one is, if you don't have a coach, hire one. Sam, in 2013 was the first year that we hit MREA status. So we grossed $1 million with 4 people on our real estate team. And we fell over in 2014 exhausted. We were so tired.
Did you even celebrate?
The office celebrated us. We were the first Rawls Group team to ever hit millionaire real estate status. So Sean Rawls actually was the OP at the time, and he came in and had this big celebration for us in our market center. They had balloons, the whole 9 yards. And yes, they celebrated us, but I don't know that we celebrated ourselves. Like, it was just so hamster, like, churn, more deals, the phone keeps ringing, right? And in 2014 is the year that Robin really started coaching us, and she just pushed us, so much. And we knew we needed something different, because in 2014 we fell on our faces and we barely hit MREA. And it was because we were so tired. We had no life. And Bob Kalinsky gave us some of the best advice. He actually gave Andy this advice at breakfast. He said, when you get to a certain point in production, you have to start paying people. He's like, you have to pay people. He's like, you can't expect just free coaching and free advice. Like, you've got to get into a relationship with people, and you've got to pay for that. And that's when we really started following Gene Rivers, because Bob said, you've got to find out who you want to be when you grow up and go find that person. And for us, we looked up at Gene and Rebecca Rivers and we said, dang, like, that is who we want to be when we grow up. Like, I really wanted 4 kids, Sam, and they had 4 kids. So I was hoping by hiring Gene that Andy would really jump on the 4 children bandwagon, and that really did not happen. We still have 2. You say, Andy, you have 2 dogs. Aren't you lucky? I don't know.
Anytime that you need an extra 2 kids, I'll be happy to send mine your way.
Please, I
Yeah.
love their ages. That'd be awesome, awesome, awesome. Much better than 14-year-old middle school.
Yes. Yes, I'm very grateful for my time right now. Yeah.
Yes, enjoy. So we looked up and we said, Jean and Rebecca, they own multiple market centers. Jean's an operating partner. They both teach. Rebecca runs the team. They have other businesses as well. And we just said, that's who we want to be when we grow up. And it took us probably 9 months to get into a relationship with Jean and get on his coaching schedule. And he still coaches us today. We actually have 3 coaches today, which is huge. We've had nutrition coaches. So I just don't wait to hire a coach. That's another failure, because we all hit these ceilings. And the only thing that's really going to get us through these ceilings is coaching and a person really pushing us and taking us to the next level.
So I don't think I realized this. Gene was your first coach that you paid for.
He was the first coach. And the first year, because he has like a tiered coaching plan. He's a lot more expensive than Matt's. In the first year, it was like buying a used Honda Accord. And literally, Andy and I got the contract and we're reading over it. And we're like sinking feeling in our stomach, like, how can we afford to do this? And Brad Feynman at the time was our team leader. And Brad was still the team leader. We threw the contract on Brad's desk and we said, we're just really struggling with this. This is so much money. And Brad goes, let me get this straight. You have the opportunity to coach with Gene Rivers, and he only coaches 5 teams across the country, and you're not going to sign this? What am I missing? And I mean, literally in Brad's office, we inked it, ran to I think it was the fax machine, maybe, world. Ran to the fax machine, faxed it to Gene, and got in his coaching schedule.
Another leader showing up and stabbing you in the front.
All the time,
yeah.
Right? And it's funny because I struggle so much as a leader, and I assume that many of you are this way. I'm high I. I love people. I want people to love me. And I struggle sometimes, even on my own team, stabbing people in the front. And I've learned over time that it's all through just coaching and weekly accountability, and just getting them to come to the realization of what they need to come to. It's asking the right questions. And, Sam, Andy, and I, and Gary in 2016 made all of his mastermind group, which was only 100 people at the time. It wasn't as big as it is now. He made us all become MAPS coaches. And none of us really wanted to. I mean, it's not a lot. Comparatively to us running our teams, it 2 clients is what we had to have. And that wasn't a lot of money. It didn't make sense, because for MAPS coaches, they have 30 clients, right? I mean, that's when it starts making sense. But to have 2 coaching clients and to be responsible to be a part of every MAPS call, everything that MAPS requires you to do was a lot. And we're like, why is he making us do this? We were so annoyed.
And the preparation too, of like, you're not going to, half you're going to pour in. Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I'm going to show up for a 30-minute call. It's going to be, I'm going to prep 30 minutes. Yeah. I'm going to spend 30 minutes on a call, and then I'm going to recap it for 15, and I'm holding them accountable. It's a lot of stuff outside of that. And then we were on all these calls with Diana every week. And so there was a lot to go on with that. And I mean, I remember the whole group was just like, what are we doing? And you guys, that was the best experience I ever had. Because that one, I keep saying that, that's the best experience I've ever had. But really, one of the best experiences within KW was becoming a MAPS coach, because you do learn so much about how to lead through asking the right questions. And it made Andy and I both become much better leaders on our team.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't even publicly share this. I'm going through the process right now of becoming a MAPS coach. And like, that's shown up in my personal life too, of just like, stop, ask the question, don't focus on the problem, focus on the person. And it's a great experience. Anytime that you can take advantage of, like, even if you don't aspire to become a MAPS coach, go through that training process. It'll just make you a better person.
I completely agree. And once again, that was a moment where my high D personality is like, I don't have time for this. I've got too much, right? Well, I mean, good grief. Like, that time I invested has been one of the best experiences for our team members.
Yeah. So Lesley, I wanted to laugh a little bit because we'd posted that we were going to do this on Thursday, and you said like something in the comments about like, haha, take it easy on me, Sam. And I thought that was hilarious because like you're somebody that was on stage with Gary Keller at Mega Camp just like not that long ago. And I thought how funny that she kind of mentioned that. But like that Mega Camp was my first Mega Camp with the GLG, and that one stood out for a reason, but it was really, really cool. I love your quote. It stands out to me more than most things I've heard at Family Reader Mega Camp when you said that, oh goodness, I'm going to butcher it now. Tremendous results live on the other side of fear. And I was
Massive
like,
opportunity is on the other side of fear.
what was it again? I butchered it.
No, you're good. You're close. Massive opportunity is on the other side of fear.
Yeah. And like, how's that showed up? Or like, I guess one of my questions I wanted to ask you was looking back, what was one of the scariest things that you can remember that brought in that fear that you're like, all right, that was no big deal?
Yeah. Oh my God. There have been so many scary ones. I mean, I think the first one was just getting into real estate and leaving like a teaching job. I had a master's in teaching, but my undergrad was in business, and everybody thought I was crazy, right? So I think, and people were saying, "Go prove yourself," you know. So that was fearful. I think the second one was hiring our first assistant. That was scary. It's in the downturn in 2010, and I mean, money's not growing on trees at that point, right? Still doesn't
That's a
today.
scary time in any industry. Yeah.
Yeah, that still happens.
Yeah.
And then building a team, right? Hiring that first buyer's agent. But then the quote I really talk about in that portion of the interview, and this is the scariest thing, is when the region approached us about Andy becoming operating partner for these three. They actually approached us sooner about taking over another one that would have been like 4 hours from our house. And we said no. We prayed on it. I mean, we talked to Gene Rivers ad nauseum about it, and we passed. And we passed for our family. It was the glass ball that we couldn't drop, right? At that point, we had young kids. And not 6 months later, this opportunity came up for Andy to become operating partner literally in the northern suburbs. We live in the city. We live in Brookhaven, but like 20 and 30 minutes away. And it was just like an opening. And immediately we saw it as such a positive. And we said, yes, this is amazing, right? But we negotiated for a year. And during this year that we're negotiating, there's a lot of things that came up that we were like, okay, number one, I mean, everybody's telling us you don't make as much on the operating partner side as you make in your own team. And I think that's a fallacy that a lot of people don't understand. But I mean, your team is more of a profit center than market centers. And Gene Rivers just kept saying, like, this is a lot for you guys to take on. It's three, and it's going to take your eyes off your team. Your team could go backwards. Cheryl Sidoti told us that too. Like, your team could go backwards. And can you guys take that? And I looked at Andy at one point and I said, I've really prayed about it, and the team's our baby. Let's not do it. I don't think we should do it. Let's bow out. Like, we've got a great thing going. Our team was rocking and rolling. Let's not do it. That's, you know, a lot. And we were in the room with Gary at a mastermind, and we're still negotiating, right? Still waiting. And Gary said something. He said a couple of things in that mastermind, but one of them just spoke to me so much. He said, when the coach is a player, the accountability is impure. And I looked at Andy, who was still selling listings 75 plus a year. And I thought, God, that is so true, because I've been out of production for 5 years and I coach our team and lead it. I felt like I was leading well because I had the time to lead. But Andy couldn't coach and lead the team because he's in the day-to-day of it. Like, when the coach is a player, the accountability is impure. And I looked at Andy and I said, you know what? This could be the biggest blessing for our team, is you getting out and going and doing your next opportunity. Andy wanted the operating partner. Like, he wanted it so badly. He was ready for the next step. He wanted to impact more lives. And I felt like I was kind of holding him back out of fear because our team would go backwards, and I didn't want our team to go backwards. And I literally looked at him and I'm like, massive opportunity is on the other side of fear. Do it. And we had dinner that night in Austin. It was just the two of us that night. We didn't go out with friends. And I remember we spent the whole dinner talking about how we're just going to get the deal done. So that changed our life. And I mean, today, I mean, I get so much joy out of the market centers, and it's not even my job. But I love spending time with you guys. I love teaching and just being a part of something bigger. And that's been really awesome. So,
and that's exactly it too, is that like your world got bigger, right? Like now,
yeah,
not just one market center, you have three, and we're at the point where like we're almost touching 1,100 lives. Yeah,
yeah,
it's fantastic. And that doesn't happen just inside a team.
right.
Unless you're the Locans, they're pretty close to it. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Um, so Lesley, you're known for being very creative with your lead generation and a lot of the marketing, the brand and the identity that's the Peters company. Is that just a superpower? Is that something that you've always had? Is that a skill that you've grown over the years? Like, how did we come from this journey of like being a teacher to 36 units your first year, or the first couple of years, and then to now?
Yeah. I I actually had to do this recently, a joy list. One of my coaches was like, Lesley, you are doing too many things. Like, let's focus on getting you leverage. And I want you to write down all the things that you don't want to get rid of. Like, write or basically the things that bring you joy. And Christina's on this call. Christina, I see you. You see me. She's going to know this about me. The first thing I wrote on the list that I didn't want to give up was the marketing side. And you guys know Christina is our director of marketing. Like, but her 411 calls are so long because of me, because I get so passionate about it. She's laughing. I get so passionate and I'm like, and we can do this. I'm her biggest nightmare. I am certain, but I just love marketing so much. And she's the implementer, like you guys, and she has a ton of vision. And the two of us together, when we come together, I mean, you should hear me like screaming in her office, like, oh my God, best idea ever. I mean, we just together, it's like the joy for me. And I actually told Andy I had given up, Chris, I had given up 411s for a while. And I told Andy one day, I was like, I can never give up being a partner with a director of marketing, because that is just a part that I love. I mean, I love it. I love thinking of creative ideas, and two, in that position, it's not just about bringing value to the brand, but it's bringing value to people in their lives. So how can our events become a part of people's lives? And it's just fun. And another thing, Sam, this is going to be weird, and some of you may get off the call when I say this, but another thing on my joy list, I think it was like the third thing that I listed. I mean, marketing was first, and third, I think I listed lead generation.
Hmm.
It's weird.
What's your favorite way to lead generate though? Because that's a tricky word sometimes, that we automatically think door knocking, and that may
Yeah.
not be for everybody. Like, what's your favorite part about lead generation?
And this is the call I have frequently with agents too, is I don't look at it necessarily as generating leads. I look at it as building relationships. So yes, we call it lead generation, but I just look at keeping in touch with people and adding value to their lives, right? And how do I do that? And just staying in touch with people. And that I follow DTD2. I contact 55 people a week. I write 15 handwritten notes a week. And it's just become such a part of my life that I can't imagine not doing that. And I mean, it's just fun. Like, that's the reason I got into this business, though, is to build relationships with people.
Your connections. So my interest is peaked. What is number two? You gave us one and three.
I know.
I need to know what number two is.
Hold on. It's right here. I literally just did it. Oh, no, actually. So I listed work first. So you can kind of see my joy list. I listed work first, and then I listed the personal side. I said marketing first. And then second, I said lead generation.
Okay.
And then third, I said networking. And then I said teaching and training. And then I said making people happy. Like, I've always told Andy that one day I just want to be the director of happiness and just like give gifts all the time and make people happy.
what I think's interesting about that too is like that's your personal or that's your professional side. Like that could fit someone's personal side. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, bringing joy and making people happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So do that. Do a joy list if you haven't. I mean, it really made me start thinking about even long term. Like, there's things that we all have to do right now to take our business to the next level. But when we get there, like, what do you really want to do? I ask this question all the time when we teach. But if you woke up and you won the lottery tomorrow morning and you had so much money that you didn't have to go back to work, would you? And my answer is yes. I'd be here tomorrow despite winning the lottery because I get to work in an industry that I love and with a team I adore. And I can't imagine being anywhere else. And I think that's where we have to lie. And Sam, a year ago, I probably wouldn't have said that because I wasn't back in the team as much. And now that I'm back in the team every single day, I'm like, yes, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. And have you ever asked that question to your database as well? I love asking the lottery question.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a question that you normally only have with people really close to you, like your best friends or even your spouse. But like, that's a fun conversation to have with like even acquaintances. Like, tell me more. It's a great to get to know you question.
It's so true. It's so true. And, the future self has been so impactful in our life. Robin Matthews actually did it with Andy the first time. I'm looking at Christina. I actually want to do hers in a couple of weeks because that has been on my list. But we're doing one with a current employee today. And I think it's so important to revisit those future selves because things change. When you have team members join a team, they think they want to do one thing, but then time goes by and then other opportunities may interest them or rise. And so for me, when I first got into business, I would have told you that I just wanted to sell real estate forever. And then you see the opportunities that Keller Williams has. And I mean, you guys, we are so blessed to be a part of this company because you do not have to sell real estate forever, or you can. Your choice. There are just so many opportunities for growth. And I never dreamed, number one, that I would be a MAPS coach. Are you kidding? Like, I thought that was for someone else. And I mean, that to be a MAPS coach, like that is a huge honor. And then to be a trainer. And I mean, just over time, our paths change. So really focusing in on what is your 5-year plan, right? What, if you could have the best 5 years ever, what's happened? What does it look like?
I kind of equate being a leader or even just an associate at KW of like being that like undecided freshman. There are so many opportunities that it's like sometimes hard to figure out what path you're going to go down. It's like when I first came in, I'm like, all right, black belt team leader. That's what I want. Like, that's going to be me. And now I'm like, KW trainer? No. MAPS coach? Maybe. Like, it's just like, there's so many amazing opportunities. It can take a little while to figure it out, but like it's there for the taking. You just got to figure out what it is you want to do and strive towards it. It's a great, yeah, tremendous opportunity here.
It is. And it just evolves. And, I really think you just have to kick butt in whatever you're doing and show up every day and bust your butt, right?
And be okay with failure. Yeah.
Yeah. Fail a lot and then pick yourself back up, right? And then those opportunities come for sure. We had I was in the car with one of my kids, my little one, she's 11, 2 weeks ago, and we use a ton of Keller Williams just life lessons at home. I mean, the bold laws, everything. And we talk to them about the books we read. I make them watch way too many TED Talks that they do not want to watch, or in the car, listening to stuff. And in front of us in carpool line was one of my dear friends that doesn't work anymore. And Veda said, I was having like a really rough week. This was several weeks ago. And Veda said, Mom, Miss Rochelle, she doesn't work anymore. She said, I wonder what she does during the day. And I said, trust me, I'm sure she fills her days. And she looked at me and she said, Mom, would you want to not work? And I said, some days. And she looked at me and she said, well, why do you say that? And I said, well, this week's just a really hard week. I was like, I kind of wish I was in that car. Right. And she looked at me and she goes, but Mom, she said, I think that you couldn't do that. You have too much grit. And I said, tell me more about grit. And she said, well, I mean, if you fall down 6 times, I mean, you just keep getting up 7. And I was like, that is the lesson in life, right? Here I am, down and out. And I'm like, I would love to be in my friend's car, like going to play tennis, or I don't even play tennis, but doing whatever they do. Okay. And Beta's like calling me out. She's like, but mom, that could not be you. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. It couldn't be. Because I would make it like a day, Sam, a day.
Well, and I know you're going on vacation next week, and that's a conversation we have with Andy. We're like, we're not calling you, we're not texting you. We're like, we're going to see if you call us or contact us. Like, don't do it. Yeah, don't do it.
We have a really hard time checking out, a really hard time.
And it's
right?
because you care about what you do.
Right, Christina?
Well, it's because you have the passion for it. It's not because like you choose to get away or because you're avoiding work. It's because you love what you do. Like it fills your cup.
Yeah, and it's funny because I know every single day on the trip we'll be brainstorming and vision casting and coming up with all these ideas. The poor team, when we come home, we may have a list of all these awesome ideas we have, right? But no, we love it. Like we can't turn it off.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, we all have our hard days, right? We all have the days that we're like, I just want to quit. And I mean, just have the grit to keep getting up. I had this conversation with an agent yesterday on the phone. She said, I've only done this many transactions. And she said, I'm just feeling like this may not be for me. And I said, you know why our industry has such a high fallout rate? Is because people quit right before they succeed. Because I mean, you guys think about it every single day. If you're making your contacts and you're showing up and you're working hard, eventually that's going to pay off, and it just takes time. And so many people don't have the patience and they don't create the habits. And you know, one of my favorite quotes, and I talk about it a lot, is millions are made in the mundane. And for me, lead generation, I mean, it started out being really mundane, and I didn't love it in the beginning. I'm going to be honest. And then, I mean, now I put that as number 2 on my joy list. Like, come on, you know? Yeah. So just have grit. Don't give up.
Well, and we often hear like, you know, how often would it be just like one more phone call that would have changed your life, or one more phone call that would have, you know, went all in on the gas? It could have just been one more phone call, and then a lot of us quit.
Yeah.
It's tough. So speaking of like those down days, I wanted to ask you, one, thank you for validating that you do have down days, because I think there's a lot of us that kind of look at your world and we're like, man, everything's a running system and you got things in place and it's all magical. Like, we know that's not the case, but you have a really good job of hiding that. And then 2, like, how do you, on a down day, like, is it finding joy, or is there an activity that you do that like brings you out of that funk that you may be in? Like, what reminds you of what, like, why does you do it, or what just gets you out of that groove?
Yeah, don't let me forget that question, but funny story on that. And I think of Sean Rawls often. He was our first OP. And he would say, you guys all see this man on the tiger, and you're like, oh, wow, look at that man riding the tiger. He's on top of the world, right? And the man riding the tiger is like, how in the heck do I get up here, and how in the world do I get down? Right?
It's great.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's such a great analogy, because I mean, there's so many days it's like, what in the world am I doing? Right. And I mean, there are a lot of down days. I mean, I lose a team member, guys, and that's like, I mean, that crushes me for months. Like there are things that, I mean, are definitely hard, and I get really down, and I have a really low S, you guys know, on the disc steadiness. So my S is really low. So I get really happy, and then I'm like, oh God, this is really bad. It's in the world. And Andy Peters has the like most steady S. He's like always the same. He doesn't get excited. I mean, he doesn't really get sad. Like he's just always calm, cool, and collected. And honestly, I think having a partner that can kind of level like me out, I mean, we make the perfect match, because I get him excited sometimes when he needs to rah, you know, have some energy. And then 2, like, I mean, he asks me the question all the time, like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen if I'm facing like a really tough situation? What's the worst thing that can happen? We've agreed we try not to coach each other, but sometimes in those moments, like we are coaching each other. And a lot of times it's really tough, Sam, because the things that I may be down about, he's probably down about too. Because think about it. I mean, we're married and we
impact you both. Yeah.
So we have both. And so a lot of times it's just pumping us up. And honestly, it's being around my kids. I mean, if I can be around my kids and spend time with them and have joy there, or really focus on friends or family that I need to spend time with, those are the things that kind of pull me out of like a slump or a funk. Yeah, those sort of things. For sure. But I mean, we all have those down days. One question I've been asking myself a lot lately and I think this is a Matt's question, but if I'm not going to be thinking about this a year from now, why am I worried about it right now?
That's a great question.
And so I think about that a lot. Okay, am I really going to be thinking about this specific instant or client, unhappy client, or a team member that left a year from now? Probably not. Like, I'm going to be moved on to the next thing. And then it's just like, okay, then stop thinking about it. It's just like controlling the mindset. You know, books are really great too. I listen to a lot of podcasts, that sort of thing.
Cool. Well, actually, I want to ask you, that's a great segue. I want to ask you like a rapid fire list of questions here. I'll start with this one. This is a little bit further on, but like, what's your favorite podcast? What should we listen to?
Okay, favorite podcast. Y'all love Think Like a CEO with Gary. I know that's so generic and terrible, but I just like love Gary and I can't get enough of him. In fact, John Morgan and I I'd already listened to it once, but we listened to the Wealth series again yesterday on our way home from Birmingham. I was like, this would be a really great thing for John Morgan to hear. So I love Gary Keller's podcast. And I have to say, we go to church at Buckhead Church, North Point, Andy Stanley. And so I really listen to a lot of his sermons and podcasts.
Favorite artist right now? What are you listening to?
Oh, I can't. This is embarrassing. Y'all don't judge me.
We won't.
Luke Bryan. I mean, Luke Bryan. He's good looking. His music is fun.
You were worried about Lead Generation getting everyone off. Yeah, I think we may have lost people now. I see him leaving the room. Yeah.
They're leaving.
No, I'm kidding. What book are you reading right now?
I just finished one and I haven't started a new one. I just finished 4 by Jeff Henderson.
Awesome.
Christina's reading it too. I ordered it for her because I was obsessed with it. I liked it so much, Sam, that I got his contact information. He wrote me a note after I wrote him a handwritten note. And I've introduced him via email to Gary Keller and Jay Papazan. And they're reading his book right now.
Awesome.
And we're hoping that he'll be on like a life mastery series or something.
Yeah, sure. We have spring masterminds coming up soon. That'd be really cool. Yeah. What is your favorite book? Personal or professional? Either one.
It got me out of a slump one time, so it'll always be my favorite book. It's the 10X Rule.
10X. Cool.
By Grant Cardone.
Yeah. Who is your favorite influencer on social media right now?
Oh, favorite influencer. Christina, can I say Lauren Lefevre? So one of our clients, Lauren Lefevre, she's just a lot of fun. She gives fashion tips and she's fun. She mindless Instagram scrolling and stories.
Cool. And Allison, that was 10X by Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the previous book was The 4. Oh, thank you, Christina. She's got it in the chat. What new skill are you learning right now?
Oh, this is fun. Do you want work or personal?
Either one.
I had no.
Oh, give me both then. I'm gonna ask too.
Okay. I had no hobbies before COVID, and Andy said that real estate was my only hobby, and that was really sad. And I picked up painting during quarantine. But guys, I can now needlepoint, and so that's my new skill. I can needlepoint.
So you've tackled needlepointing, painting. I've seen your floor arrangements as well. Is there anything else that we're missing that you've learned in COVID?
I just newfound hobbies, Sam.
Yeah. They've all been amazing too. I'm like, I don't have the talent to do any of that stuff at that level either.
It's just fun. Something new and different.
Any skill you're trying to learn professionally?
For sure. I have felt that I've never been great at training our ISA ever. And it's because I don't know the scripts, like circle prospecting scripts, because I've never circle prospected. I don't know FSBO and expired scripts. So I'm really trying to dive in and learn the scripts as he's learning them and just become better so I can basically train.
Awesome. What was your favorite class to teach, and what's your favorite class you've taken?
Okay, the favorite class I've taken. Oh God, this is hard. I love career visioning, but Quantum Leap with Gene
Yeah.
Rivers. Favorite class I've taken. Favorite class to teach. I mean, 36 touch.
Yeah.
Easy.
And then Andy emailed me a list. What do you want for your birthday, anniversary, Valentine's Day next year? How can we help them out?
Just a beat cow.
I'm
That's
kidding.
all I want.
Totally joking on all that. Yeah. I just tried to help him out.
He can combine all of them into one.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be a mastermind of market share around excuse me, with Andy's absence, if I didn't ask you, why do you continue to stay at KW? Final question.
Yes.
And it can't be because you're married to an OP of 3 market centers.
No, it's the people.
Yeah.
I mean, it started with the people in our market center, and it's expanded to people all over the country. I mean, we're spending Memorial Day in Texas with a bunch of our friends that we've made through Gary's group. So, I mean, it honestly is the people, and who you surround yourself with matters. I mean, that's your lid.
Yeah. Open it up. Yeah. Go out there and start meeting people. Send those messages. Yeah. It'll open up your world. Awesome. Well, Lesley, thank you so much for your time. It was great getting to know you without Andy being attached to you. It was great to have you on screen by yourself, and we just appreciate your hour.
Oh, Sam, thank you so much. This was fun.
Yeah.
I got to be Lesley for an hour, not Andy's wife. It was really cool.
Yeah, we don't believe that. we know who runs the show, Lesley. Let's not kid anyone.
Thank you, Sam. I hope you guys all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Great hour. Thank you.
Thanks.